Down to the hardwood floor, the furniture, even the golden gilded wallpapers all the way around us. But more than fabrications and recreations, we also have antiques and original pieces. It's quite the intro, ain't it?
Yes, you're good at this.
Right behind the fine gentleman, you'll find that we have our Davenport. I actually had to take a picture and show my grandmother. I had no idea what that was called at first. She told me, back in the day, it was a very common piece of furniture. You would hang your coats on it, your hats, a little mirror to check your appearance, and those little side pockets were there for umbrellas. Over time, they've made the design different, more modern, sleek. Now they're called hall trees, westerns, catch-alls. It really depends on the furniture company and what they're known for. That specific piece is special to us not only because it's a 1920 heirloom, but also because it was in the room on the night of the murder.
Wow.
And moving right along here, we have some technology pieces as well. You'll find that we have a bit of a mouthful. Luxury rotary style marbled table telephone complete with room service buzzer. Anything that takes that long to pronounce is definitely fancy. And along with that wonderful piece right up here, you'll find our electronical entertainment device of the time period, a transistor radio. One of the only fun things to do in the room. But that being said, both this radio and that telephone are decoration pieces. They're far too brittle, far too old to get refurbished to replace the circuitry, so we place them in here just as memorabilia. However, that is why this phone is so special to us. It may not be as fancy as that little gentleman down there, but this one is special because we did get it fixed and repaired. Not only is it fully functional, but we have this connected into the phone lines of Chattanooga. As is code, of course, we have to have a working phone in a room that we do rent out on rare occasion.
Oh, so y'all rent this out on occasion?
On very rare occasions, sir. Last year, in fact, it was only rented out for the month of October 4 times in package deals.
Right.
From Thursday to Sunday, you had a nice accommodation of amenities, little champagne, little bonbons and such. But you could rent it out all the way through those days for a package deal of $666.
Oh.
Oh, we did it on purpose. No questions asked. Moving right along here to the bedroom area, my friends. You'll notice that we have a little suitcase, a little foot chest. Antiques they are, but stories they do not have. They've just been here forever. But behind the white curtains, which are hard to see at this time of day, unfortunately, we actually have a very unique piece of Reed House history. Bars on the windows, see?
Yeah, I see them.
Those bars are there for 2 reasons. The original reason is actually kind of humorous and practical. Back in the 1920s, across from the front door of the Reed House was actually a train station. Not just for cargo, but also for people. And what that meant for the Reed House is that when the 5 to 6 a.m. train pulled into the station in the morning, people here on the 3rd floor got a little clever. And they actually started to crawl out the window and jump on the train to avoid paying for the rooms. It became so commonplace that the Reed House put bars on every 3rd floor window all the way around. And they didn't go any higher though. They felt if you jumped out the 4th story and got away, you deserved to.
You deserve to get free. Yep.
But those bars helped us with a second reason.
Al Capone.
Detaining a very infamous gentleman. Y'all may be aware of the name Al Capone. The story goes that he was finally detained and arrested for about the only thing they could pin on him, tax evasion. And he was on his way to Chicago, final destination for Alcatraz, of course. During that train ride, they of course had to have a layover here and there for the guards keeping him in check. And they stopped at that very train station. The Reed House had everything they wanted. Plenty of room for all the guards, a convenient location right next to the train, and the most important thing, a secure room that Mr. Al Capone couldn't escape from. People ask us why you couldn't just throw him in a holding cell, of course, and the fact is that until you declared that gentleman guilty, throwing him behind prison cells could have been calculated by his lawyers as mistreatment and abuse, letting him off on yet another technicality. Mr. Capone was infamous for getting out of prison before he ever stepped foot into it, and they didn't want to take any risks. So when they approached us and asked us, would you help us detain Mr. Capone, we said, sure, we have the perfect room for him. And we threw him in the haunted 311 out of spite. And more than that, during the renovations, my friends, we actually took a copy of his Bureau of Investigation transcript, proving that on the night of May the 4th, 1932, Mr. Al Capone was detained in this very room 5 to 7 years after the incident with Miss Annalise Netherby. And all of that happens here in the lavatory.
You even got the spooky footsteps.
Thank you. I've worked on it. No. The tale of Miss Annalise Netherly is a sad tale, unfortunately, but we want to keep it alive so that she's never forgotten, and that we never forget how a woman of her stature was treated back in the day. Miss Netherly was a beautiful, charming, and vibrant young woman, about 27, 28, 23 if we're being respectful. But she was not born and raised here in Chattanooga. She was a stranger. Some people say she came from California. Others say she came from Missouri. We get a little back and forth on that. Some people assume she was running away from something. Others say she wanted to start a new life. Her past, unfortunately, is a mystery to us. But what we do know, and where we pick up the story, is right here in Chattanooga, where she got married to an older, wealthier businessman. Back in the time period especially, being the 1920s, a young and vibrant woman was expected to marry a businessman so that he could take care of her, provide her finances, give her a house, and in return she would maintain the house, chores, and such like that. For the gentleman, however, he only wanted to marry Miss Netherly for one reason. Not that he wanted a wife per se, but he wanted a trophy. Someone to doll up and parade around his business adventures. So once they got married, the gentleman got exactly what he wanted. He put her in the best clothes for the time, dolled up her hair real nice, took her out on the town around all of his colleagues. He impressed them, made them envious. They respected him, put him on that big shot pedestal he wanted. For Miss Netherly, however, it was not the same. Not only did he not return her any affection or love she would throw at him. To be fair, she didn't expect it. But then there were times, more often than not, he would leave on his business adventures, days, weeks at a time. Miss Netherly was left back here in Chattanooga, inside of an empty home, with not even enough money to feed herself. She was abused for the time, and taken advantage of. But she was also young, beautiful, and charming. And she refused to just lay down and accept that that was her new life for one simple mistake. So while the gentleman went away, she started to come over here to the Reed House, frequented us quite often. And over time, we realized that Miss Netherly had become a self-employed lady of the evening. That's the polite way to say it. Now this went on for months, almost half a year. Miss Netherly became very popular in Chattanooga, not just for her business etiquette, but also for her natural beauty, grace, and charm. People would come over to just drink with her, dine with her, dance with her. She was a gem to the Reed House. And unfortunately, that gem shined too brightly. As Miss Netherly gained more and more popularity, some of her business colleagues would get back on that train and take the stories home with them. The tale of Miss Netherly spread to Nashville, Atlanta. Some people even know about her all the way in Chicago. And coincidentally, as her popularity grew, the reputation of the husband began to turn on the downfall. He began to become the joke of all of his colleagues. He began to lose faith in his business contracts. For in the 1920s, you must understand, a man who could not control his marriage could not be seen to control his money. He found out very quickly why he was losing his money. He found out very quickly exactly what Miss Netherly was doing. And he came up with a plan to fix everything. The story goes that he came back from one of his business trips, walked right up and confronted Miss Netherly. And I apologized. He said he was sorry for the way that he treated her. It was embarrassing for a gentleman of his stature to leave her with no finances. He was ashamed of himself. And he promised he was going to turn over a brand new leaf, starting that very night. He was going to take her to the very best place in all of Chattanooga. Still the best place. The Reed House. Miss Netherly was skeptical at first, obviously, to change on a dime so quickly. But on the other hand, she was young and inexperienced, and hopeful deep down. This is what she signed up for. This is what was expected back in the day. Maybe something on that last business trip changed his mind. And she had no idea how right she was. When the two got here to the Reed House, the very first thing that he did for her was buy her 2 full bottles of her favorite red wine. And they began to drink for a little bit. After they drank for a little while, the music started to play. So they went to the Silver Ballroom to dance for a little while. When Miss Netherly got tired, he convinced her to go back down to drink for a little bit. And so on and so forth. Miss Netherly was finally happy that she was getting what she signed up for, finally content with the idea she wouldn't have to go back to work. And that's when she lost track of time. Before you knew it, it was past midnight. Before you knew it, both of those wine bottles were emptied. Miss Netherly was intoxicated and utterly exhausted from the dancing. And she was not able to put the puzzle together when the gentleman proposed that because they were both so tired already, there was no need to go back home. It was already so late. They'll go ahead and get a room. They're in a hotel after all, but not just any room. He was going to treat her to the best room, the 311 suite. The only thing that Miss Netherly could think about in her current state was about how much she wanted to take a nice hot bath, wash away the sweat, the smell of the alcohol, pick up her little feet and relax. When the gentleman and Miss Netherly came up here, she waltzed right here into the lavatory, turned on the hot water, the steam filling up the room, and then she laid back, soaking in the tub. That's when the gentleman came into the bathroom. Said, "You look so exhausted, honey. Let me give you a little back massage, help you relax." And he worked his way up behind Miss Netherly as she laid in that tub. And while she waited, the next thing that she felt was not his hands, but it was the blade of a knife, as he sliced her throat open, murdering her in the white porcelain, claw-footed bathtub that we've kept through all these decades, right here. At least that's what they tell me to tell you. And that, my friends, is our sad story of Miss Netherly and the 311 Suite.